so cute.
Yeah.
And we had a rescue Cocker Spaniel at the time and brought her in. And she was like, no,
Yeah.
this puppy is not coming home.
Yeah.
And so I'm sure someone else adopted the beautiful little dog because they were so adorable. But Katie ended up being a single doggy for her entire life.
Yeah. And that's okay.
She was spoiled. And now it's like you said, though, we have a new rescue, Trixie, and she thinks she's my husband's girlfriend, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
She's warming up to me, but definitely she is Woody's girlfriend. She's like, look, human, no. But they all have their personalities. So again, though, you guys, I'm so excited for you to have that new facility. You all deserve it because you do so much for the community and so much for all the animals in the Pontiac area as well. You've been a lifeline to so many animals there. So congratulations on your new facility. And again, if anyone has anything they want to donate, or if you want to make a donation maybe for the holiday season in someone's name, just go to Amazon or on your Facebook page, that information.
Yeah, we have a really cool holiday giving guide on our website where you can do gifts, in someone's name. You can print out a photo of the animal that you've made the gift in honor of, so you can check that out.
That from yesterday's edition of the Oakland County Megacast. Good morning, I'm Tyler Kieft in the studios of 89.3 WBLD, Orchard Lake, West Bloomfield, Kego Harbor, Sylvan Lake. Today's edition of the Megacast begins in 5 seconds. Joined, of course, today on the West Bloomfield Clerk's Facebook page. Good Friday morning. I'm Tyler Kieft in the studios of 89.3 Lakes FM and Civic Center TV. Welcome to the Megacast. I'm joined as always from her home studio by Ronnie Dahl.
Tyler, we made it. It's Friday. Happy Friday to you.
Oh, yes. Happy Friday, Ronnie.
So it looks like they had a great turnout yesterday at Somerset Mall, the Motown Digital team that also helps put the show on the air. They were at Somerset for the Mitch Album Radiothon. A great event there this year, even though it was a lot different, Tyler.
Yeah, a lot different. Nobody, of course, in the main in a main stage area. There weren't a bunch of seats pulled out. The whole area was roped off. Everyone's wearing masks unless they were on the air, and even then, 6 feet apart. Everyone at Mitch's table that was on the air with him yesterday, and still, despite the differences in this year's show, still raised over $1.6 million. For Say Detroit.
Yeah, a record year for them despite the pandemic. So great things still going on in the middle of the crisis, but I'm sure it was a lot of work by the Motown Digital team. They were out there bright and early yesterday, and it goes all the way until while the Radiothon ends at 9, you still have to tear down all the equipment. So, I know, were you out there at all, Tyler?
I was out there. I went out that way yesterday. About 2 o'clock, I left here after getting the Megacast into replay in the afternoon and making sure that our team that was on site here through the afternoon was set and ready to go. I went out there. I was there from about 3 o'clock until we were done with the show, and done with removing all of our equipment, or striking as it's known in the business, and we got out of there. Actually, with it being a little bit smaller of a show this year, we got out of there at about 11 o'clock.
See, there's always an upside. Always an upside.
Always.
You just have to look for that silver lining.
Absolutely.
Well, we have a lot to get to on the Friday edition of the Oakland County Megacast. As a reminder, Tyler and I are here every day, Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. until noon. You can catch us on Civic Center TV, Birmingham Area Municipal Access, Channel 15 if you have Comcast, 99 if you have AT&T. I know a lot of people right now, maybe they don't have cable, but for those that do, thank you, because a portion of your fee does go to help support programming such as this. You can also catch us on the radio, 89.3 Lakes FM, 88.1 FM The Biff. And as Tyler did mention, We are also live streaming today's edition of the Oakland County Megacast on the West Bloomfield Clerk's Office Facebook page. So we want to say thank you to the team over there, and we'll be speaking with Debbie Binder here in just a little bit. But first, Tyler, let's go ahead and get to the day's headlines, and you'll find those on civiccentertv.com. Just click on the coronavirus tab, and that's where we post the day's latest headlines. Some good news actually coming out of the FDA. The insulated boxes filled with vials of Pfizer's COVID-19 vaccine and dry ice will be loaded onto FedEx and UPS trucks and shipped within hours of being granted regulatory emergency approval in the U.S. Company says it will initially distribute 6.4 million doses of its vaccine across the U.S. Many of those doses are coming from the company's Kalamazoo manufacturing plant. So Michigan playing a big part in this vaccine rollout. Michigan is earmarked to receive about 84,825 doses of Pfizer's coronavirus vaccine if it is granted emergency authorization by the FDA. Although the FDA committee yesterday, Tyler, did vote 17-4 to recommend the agency should grant emergency authorization of the vaccine, it could still be a couple of days for the FDA to make that final decision. You probably didn't get a chance to watch any of the hearings yesterday, Tyler, because they did live stream them.
I did not get a chance to, no.
So it was pretty interesting. Now, one of the reasons for that split in the vote, 17-4, is because some of the pediatrics that are on this committee weren't comfortable with the age requirements because the vaccine is going to be for 16 and older. They thought it should be for people 18 and older because they felt there weren't enough studies done yet on teenagers and kids. So again, the vaccine is just going to be, once it gets approved, it's expecting that approval is going to come possibly even today, and then we could see some people getting vaccines if it does happen today as early as Monday. But right now it looks like the requirements are going to be 16 and older.
Yeah, it looks like that's going to be the requirements right now. So we'll see if that changes over time or with other vaccines. And of course, the Moderna vaccine is also close to being through this process also. So there may be other vaccines that will get an approval for a younger age group. But of course, that's yet to be known, if at all, if this 16-year-old minimum requirement is going to be in place for all of these vaccines or just this specific Pfizer vaccine.
Yeah, I know it was a busy day for you yesterday, Tyler, because on top of that, the governor throws out a press conference at 1 o'clock. So I was able to catch it as I was out walking the dog. Again, and not a lot seems to kind of be coming out of some of her press conferences, but the one thing that they did determine yesterday is she signed an executive order to create a COVID-19 vaccine commission, because the big worry here is that people don't want to get the vaccine. So the governor signed the executive order to create the bipartisan commission aimed at raising awareness about the soon-to-arrive COVID-19 vaccine. Governor announced the new Protect Michigan Commission during the afternoon press briefing 9 months into the state's fight against the virus that's been linked to more than 10,000 deaths. Panel's chairs will include Detroit Pistons player Blake Griffin, former Lieutenant Governor Brian Calley, we just had him on the show, and also some various health experts. And under the new executive order, the Vaccine Commission will feature at least 50 members appointed by the governor representing various sectors and communities within the state. The commission will help elevate the importance of the COVID-19 vaccine and assist in the distribution and educational materials about it. They're already anticipating, Tyler, that there's going to be people that just don't want to get the vaccine right now until more studies are being done. And so that's going to be the goal behind this. Is it's one thing to get the vaccine, but now we need people to actually take the vaccine.
Yes, and that's why you're seeing commissions like this being formed, and getting people involved that are experts in the medical field, but are also celebrities and people that others will recognize and maybe trust the advice of, because getting this vaccine is going to be key to winding down this pandemic, and those that are in doubt are going to be those that are mostly targeted by these campaigns to try to convince of the safety that is going to be in place for these vaccines.
Yeah, but you wonder if Blake Griffin or some of the Pistons, if they'll roll up their sleeves, and then what happens if they have side effects and can't play a game?
Yeah, it's a fair question, but that's to be seen.
Oh, goodness. Hey, I was sad to see this. Meadowbrook Hall in Rochester pulled the plug on their brand new outdoor holiday light display after struggling to find a way to comply with the state's current limits on outdoor gatherings amid the coronavirus pandemic. We had them on the show not long ago. They were so excited to bring this display to the public. So officials from the National Historic Landmark said they had been working closely with regional officials to find a way to comply with the governor's latest restrictions, but were unable to reach a solution. In July, Meadowbrook unveiled its plans for Winter Wonder Lights, a brand new outdoor winter holiday display to go along with its annual holiday walk, which draws thousands of visitors every year to the tour, the mansion that's completely decorated for the holidays. So Meadowbrook officials said anyone who purchased a ticket for the display will be refunded, and memberships bought in October, November, and December of this year will have benefits extending through 2021. They hoped to bring back the Winter Wonder Lights in 2021, along with the holiday walk. They were so excited and really put so much work into trying to come up with this display in a way to bring the holidays to the public, but they're just not able to make it work.
Yeah, unfortunately, they're not able to make it work, and it's another casualty of the times that we're in, trying to manage tradition and manage gatherings with people that you care about or things that you care about with this pandemic, and trying to stay safe at the same time. We've seen that with so many other traditions and so many other things that people look forward to, and of course this light display is one of those things that people maybe have been looking forward to all year long and are unfortunately not going to be able to experience because of COVID-19.
Yeah, but so for me, like I get a little confused because you still have the zoo. The zoo is still doing its lights, the outdoors. Canterbury Village is still doing its display. So that's going to be interesting to see if they may have to shut down too as we continue to go in, or if they're going to be able to manage to make it through. Maybe just more to do with the spacing of the events, because the zoo lights are pretty spread out as well. So we'll have to wait and see on that. A little bit of good news though, Tyler. The Arts Beats and Eats raises over $400,000 for local musicians. The alternative festival staged this year by Arts Beats and Eats generated some much needed income for Metro Detroit musicians struggling amid the pandemic shutdown. They announced Thursday that more than $431,000 was raised for nearly 450 area artists following a series of makeshift concerts and fundraising efforts in August and September, dubbed The Beats Go On. Half of that total, about $216,000, though, does come from a matching grant arranged by the Oakland County via CARES Act funding. Festival officials said about $83,000 was raised through donations to the Arts Beats and Eats Musicians Fund, which included a public GoFundMe campaign, and that also included $25,000 contributed from Eminem's Marshall Mathers Foundation. So definitely not enough money for some of these musicians, but at least it's something to help them out, because we all love live music, and so we're hoping that they survive this pandemic.
Yes, and this relief coming from Arts Beats and Eats, absolutely welcomed, I'm sure, by the music community. About half that total was matched by Oakland County over via CARES Act funding, and musicians have been hit really hard over the course of this pandemic because these venues haven't been open, or if they have been open, they haven't been able necessarily to give these artists a great cut of the funds because they're struggling too. And so getting some relief for these musicians not only keeps the art alive in the Detroit area, but also helps them get through this tough time and still make a living doing what they love, what they do for work.
Oh, yeah. So you'll find all those news headlines and so much more. Just head over to the civiccentertv.com, click on the coronavirus tab. And as always, you'll also find the direct links for some of the agencies, including the CDC, the state of Michigan, Oakland County, and our local municipalities as well, so that you can check out some of the information directly from the agencies as well, as we are 9 months into this pandemic and we are still managing it and still trying to figure out what is next. And I will say what is next here on the Oakland County Megacast. We have a great show lined up for you on this Friday. We are going to be speaking to the Deputy Director for an organization that is pushing for a train from Ann Arbor to Traverse City. This could be really interesting. So I'm excited to speak with the Deputy Director of that program. Where are things standing right now? Is it stalled because of the pandemic, or is it full steam ahead, as they say, Tyler? Debbie Binder, the West Bloomfield Township Clerk, will also be on our show today. And Corey Taylor, she's with the West Bloomfield Historical Society. They have some new programs over there. Really looking forward to our interview in the 11 o'clock hour with John Johnson, with the Director of Broadcast Properties with MHSAA. What is going to be the status of high school sports? Will they play? Will they not play? So hopefully we'll get an update from him, and then we'll round out the show today with interviews speaking with the Chief of the Rochester Police Department. So many scams underway right now, Tyler, because of the holiday season. So we'll be checking in with the chief. But first, we're going to take a quick break here on the Oakland County Megacast.
As rivals, we don't always see eye to eye.
Like who scored the best recruits?
Who's gonna be who?
And whether we wear green
or blue.
But one thing we can all agree on, to help stop the spread of COVID-19, wear a mask.
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 The ball's in your court, Michigan. As rivals, we don't always see eye to eye.
Like who scored the best recruits?
Who's gonna be who?
And whether we wear green
Or blue.
But one thing we can all agree on, to help stop the spread of COVID-19, wear a mask.
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 The ball's in your court, Michigan.
Great to have you tuning in to the Friday edition of the Oakland County Megacast. I'm Ronnie Dahl here in my home studios while Mr. Tyler Keith holds things down back in West Bloomfield. Our first guest with us today on the show is the Deputy Director for Groundwork Center for Resilient Communities, Jim Bruckbauer. But Jim, I'm so excited because the thought you really are the person behind trying to push for us to get a railway system from Ann Arbor up to Traverse City and the cities along the way. This has been in the making for years, though. What is the possibility of this actually taking shape?
Well, the possibility is quite high. We are, working to advance this project and bring it forward to its next steps. It's a big idea, that's for sure. And yeah, it has been talked about for years. Several years ago, the state was creating a plan for both freight and passenger rail. And one of the things that the Michigan Department of Transportation did was, when it was creating a state rail plan, they had worked with groups around the state to hold forums and get feedback from places all over the state, and people in those forums and in those surveys said, hey, if we're going to invest in rail, we want a train connection to Traverse City. And so it came up as one of the top priorities in this public input session all around the state. And so it's a lot of people are interested in it. It's a unique opportunity too, because the state still owns a majority of the right of way and the tracks that are still in place right now that do connect the Ann Arbor area to Traverse City, and they're also in good shape still. So we see this as an opportunity that we want to continue to explore. Right now, they're being used for freight traffic. So goods are being shipped from northern Michigan to places all over the country, and we just want to see a little bit more passenger service along the same tracks.
So when you hear about this, when you're just a regular person such as myself, I will say I have, as a former news reporter, I have covered so many of these press conferences where they would bring out like the shiny boards with the plan and this, that, and the other. But from the press conference to actually seeing reality, I've yet to see any of these projects come to fruition. So with that, what will it take to actually make this happen?
Yeah, so it is, big transportation projects like this do take some time, and we are an advocacy organization, so we certainly relate to getting impatient with the pace of change, but a big idea like this does take time. Like I said, this is a unique opportunity because the state owns the majority of the right-of-way. And so when you're talking about big infrastructure and transportation projects like this, that part of the process is already taken care of. A lot of places around the country, the railroad tracks are privately owned or have even been taken out. And this is the unique opportunity with this particular idea, because the state still owns the right of way for the most part, and the infrastructure is still there. So we're just looking at what improvements need to be made in order to start putting passengers on trains on a regular basis. Right now, there are excursion trains that are operating along the corridor. There's a group in Owasso called the Steam Railroading Institute, and over the past decades, they've put together these fall color tour trains up in the northern Michigan area, and also downstate in the Owasso area, but then also traveling between Mount Pleasant and Cadillac. They've put together summer trains. So there are some kind of tourist type trains, but what we're interested in is looking at the regular passenger service. And we do want to start small and build the service incrementally. And one of the first steps that happened over the past couple of years is we were able to put together an initial study on what it would take to get trains going certain speeds and how many people might ride it. What had happened after that is that the state is continuing to invest in the tracks for both the freight and the passenger side. So in particular, in the Traverse City area, repairs were made to the tracks that would allow passengers to travel directly into Traverse City, and repairs are going to continue to be made over the next year. So we're getting some of that analysis done, and we are seeing the state invest in the tracks again for both the freight and the passenger side. So we are hitting some key milestones, and we're just excited to launch this project into its next phases.
I'm looking at this, and there are so many benefits and even economic benefits as well. But before we get into that conversation, we're also in the middle of a pandemic, and the focus right now is definitely not on rail transportation from Ann Arbor to the northern part of the state. How has that impacted the work that you and your team are doing?
Sure. Well, the pandemic has certainly slowed down our ability to put together potential train rides, even with just getting like a small group of people on it, just to look at the tracks and see what what's needed next. But overall, the project is still moving ahead. We are looking at when we can start to put train rides together. And a lot of it is going to, depend on the pandemic and some of the safety standards that we want to put in place. So it has slowed our ability to actually put people on trains. However, again, we are still moving ahead with some of those track repairs and also just getting those next steps needed as far as analysis for putting the whole thing together. I mean, we have to figure out, what kind of operating structure a project like this needs. Should it be a nonprofit, a for-profit? So this gives us a little time to put some of those pieces in place. But overall, the project is still moving ahead. That's for sure.
So as you mentioned, you're an advocacy group. So why did you get involved in this?
So we are, again, a nonprofit advocacy organization, and we're based right here in Traverse City. And we work primarily in areas of local food, clean energy, and transportation policy. For 20 years, we were known as the Michigan Land Use Institute. So many people still know us by that name and recognize that name. And we advance policies that are regional and statewide that will help people gain access to, again, more locally grown food, cleaner sources of energy. But then in our transportation work, we're trying to help people get around by using lots of different transportation options other than just the car. So, when an opportunity like this comes up, again, a project that the infrastructure is still there, the state still owns most of the corridor. This is a downtown to downtown connection that will connect not only people who are traveling around the state, but college students. We thought, hey, this is an opportunity that we need to at least explore and move forward. And so far, it's been working out well. I mean, it's an idea that has a lot of public support, including from the business community of the people who are trying to attract talent to Michigan, because this project, not only is about just like the freight and passenger mobility connections throughout Michigan, but it's about connecting students, universities, and people who, workers who just want to get around the state without jumping in a car every time they want to get around. So, it's a big idea, and it's something that, these are just opportunities that our organization continues to explore. Not only are we trying to get the policies in place, but we're trying to put together on the ground projects.
Yeah, I could imagine, especially if I'm a parent, so many kids that go to Central or some of those other universities, they, students can't have a car typically their first year or two. So parents are making that trip up and back. So if I could put them on the train, and even if it's not coming to my doorstep, I only have to go to Ann Arbor. That's an easier trip to pick them up than going all the way up to Mount Pleasant. But with that too, do you feel like this could help in trying to attract people to move to the state of Michigan? Because one thing that you do know and you see when you go to other cities such as Chicago, you don't need a car to get around. There are a lot of people that, live in various cities across the country, and you can live without a car. But here in the Metro Detroit and within the state of Michigan, because we are the auto capital of the world, it's nearly impossible.
That's correct. I mean, a lot of people talk about this stretch. It's about a 240-mile stretch. It's a distance that's almost too far to drive, but too close to fly. So it's actually that sweet spot, the transit people call it, for a rail line like this. And yeah, I mean, the idea just crosses many generations. I mean, think of the baby boomers who, are getting into decades where they're not just so eager to jump in a car to travel from, downstate to the northern Michigan area and between. And, think about just the families and, again, the students. There are many different universities along this line because it connects up, again, from Ann Arbor up to Mount Pleasant and then over to Cadillac and then up to Traverse City. So It's definitely a university connector. And then, yeah, that next generation worker who wants to be in Michigan and not necessarily have a car to always get around the state. When we visited some of the tech businesses down in Ann Arbor, and when we talked to them about this idea, we were at one company, and one of the employees came up to us and said, "Hey, I love this idea. I just moved here from Michigan from Boulder, Colorado, to work here at this company, and I didn't have a driver's license because I didn't need one where I lived before. And then when I moved here, I needed to get a driver's license, and he thought it was so annoying. And so he said, yeah, I just want the ability to get around the state and not have to always jump in a car." So.
Right. And on top of that, for, some of the younger people too, the car is such an added expense as well. So I would imagine if I'm, looking at jobs across the country, and, that could factor into which job I decide to go with.
That's correct. And again, Michigan is in what I would consider a mobility revolution, with all the efforts of the Michigan Economic Development Corp and the state's just mobility priorities. This is just an addition to a lot of these mobility connections that we're already making within cities. I mean, you're seeing advancements in autonomous vehicles, electric vehicles, and just a whole, plethora of ways that people will be able to start getting around within cities. And this is that kind of downtown to downtown, city to city connector.
Have you talked to some of the mayors and elected leaders in some of these smaller towns? Because if you can get a train that stops directly downtown and a tiny little town, it has to be the possibility of an economic boom for their community.
That's correct. I mean, we see the interest from all these towns that this train line would potentially run through. Like I said, it is a downtown to downtown connector. So the people in these communities are seeing this as a way to be able to connect to Southeast Michigan, where they might be going for traveling for a number of different reasons. But, not only is it this Ann Arbor to Traverse City thing, but it is for these towns, these mid-Michigan downtowns that I think are some of the best downtowns in the entire country because of their buildings and the rivers that go through them. These are some historic downtowns that I think are some of the envy of the rest of the country. And this would allow families in these communities to be able to jump on a train and have access to major metro areas and just be able to get around the whole state.
Jim Bruckbauer with us here on the Oakland County Megacast. He's the Deputy Director for Groundwork Center for Resilient Communities. And we are talking about the plan to build the Ann Arbor to Traverse City train. And so what's next for this project, Jim?
So we are excited to launch this into its next phases. We, number one, need to complete the next formal studies that need to be completed in order for there to be fast moving regular service along this line. So there are environmental and engineering studies that need to take place. Again, we need to explore the operating structure for how passenger trains could run along this line. So we need to know, should this be a nonprofit or a for-profit? We are in the process of exploring those different operating structures. And then again, hopefully we'll begin running tests along the train line itself. We do want to get people in a train and be able to look at, okay, how long is it going to take to travel in between these towns, and what are we looking at? What type of investment do we need to get this into its next phases? And then over time, start to put together more train rides and kind of build the service incrementally. We want to start with potentially seasonal type trains and then just build more regular service as we go along.
At the end of the day, this is about money. Where is the money coming from, and how much money do you anticipate this project needing to get it completed?
Sure, and that's a great question. We Our organization is privately funded, so we're a private nonprofit, and we get almost 100% of our funding through private foundation grants and individual donors. And so the funding that's gone into this work so far has been from our organization, privately funded. And we are looking at, what type of structure is needed for both the investment in the infrastructure, but also into the capital and the operations. And that's why I say we're looking into just different nonprofit structures or for-profit structures, because you're seeing a lot of for-profit investment in rail around the country more recently, in Florida and Texas and the Las Vegas, Los Angeles area. So there is a lot of private investment right now that is going into passenger rail service. And so we are just looking at all the different opportunities that are out there. We don't see this as a publicly funded project. We are looking at certainly the private sector sources that can go into a project like this.
So if COVID has taught us anything, it's about being creative, and we are seeing more collaboration between a public-private possibility of, coming together to make something like this happen. Could that be something to be explored?
That is absolutely being explored, and that's why the potential for a nonprofit structure could make sense for something like this, where there may be some public investment, again, in the state's own infrastructure that they are maintaining. And then there could be private investment that goes into the actual capital and operations for running a train. And then those are some of the things that we are exploring. We're looking at some of the costs and looking at all the different funding sources. But again, we do need to get creative. We don't see this as a major, publicly funded infrastructure project. This is something where there are models out there where there's private investment that goes into a project like this.
I love the idea of this. I think it would definitely be utilized on so many different avenues. Jim Bruckbauer with us here. Just another minute or two. We're talking about the Ann Arbor to Traverse City train and the possibility of that actually becoming a reality one day. And with that, Jim, if people are interested in trying to find out a little bit more about what your organization is about, but also about this project, where can they get that information?
So you can find our website at groundworkcenter.org, and that's for the Groundwork Center, which is the nonprofit that's really moving this project along. You can just Google Groundwork Center as well, and it should pop up. We're celebrating our 25th anniversary this year, which is just incredible. So you can find more about our organization through that site. You can find out more about the train project through a2tc.org, or I'm sure many of your listeners will probably Google Ann Arbor to Traverse City train. Yeah, that's a simple way to find it as well. So we try to update people as much as possible. We're trying to get into the communities and making sure people are up to date and have opportunities for providing input into this project as well. That's one of our goals, just to make sure, it's not just us just moving this thing along. We want to make sure that we're hearing from people in all these communities so they can help shape this idea.
Well, I'm down for this. I will tell you that. But with that, you have a big job ahead of you because in the middle of this, again, we're in a pandemic. So trying to talk about this, it has to be a little bit difficult during this time, but it is an important project that can definitely reshape our economy in some of these towns as well. So I love it, and I hope that we see it come to a reality one day. Jim, thank you again for taking time out of your day to be with us.
And thank you very much for having me.
We're going to take a quick break here on the Oakland County Megacast, but again, just if you go to a2tc.org, you can find more information about this project. We'll take a quick break, and when we come back, Debbie Binder, West Bloomfield Township Clerk, will be with us on the Oakland County Megacast.
Michigan, we still need to stay careful because we don't want to go backwards, back to where we started. So keep standing 6 feet apart, keep wearing a mask in public, and if you have symptoms, talk to a healthcare provider about getting tested. To move forward, let's all do our part. So stay careful. Michigan.gov/coronavirus.
Hi, I'm Dr. Faust, the Medical Director for the Oakland County Health Division. The most important thing you can do to prevent the spread of illness is to wash your hands thoroughly and often. Follow these 6 easy steps every time you wash your hands. Step 1, turn on the sink and wet your hands with warm water. Step 2, apply soap to your hands and lather between your fingers, under your nails, and the front and back of your hands and wrists. Step 3, wash your hands by scrubbing them together for at least 20 seconds. Step 4, rinse your hands with warm, clean water. And step 5, dry your hands with a clean cloth towel, a paper towel, or hot air blow dryer. If you're using a cloth towel, make sure to change it often. For handheld faucets, turn off the water using a paper towel instead of your bare hand. Step 6, if you're using a paper towel, throw it away. Practice healthy habits like washing your hands after coughing or sneezing into them to keep you and others healthy. Go to oakgov.com/health or call Nurse on Call at 1-800-848-5533 to learn more.
Great to have you with us again here on the Friday edition of the Oakland County Megacast, civiccentertv.com. You can catch Tyler and I Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to noon. Also, Birmingham area municipal access, channel 15 on Comcast 99. If you have AT&T, tune us in on the radio, 89.3 Lakes FM, 88.1 FM The Fifth. We also want to say thank you today to the West Bloomfield Clerk's Office for allowing us to live stream today's edition of the Oakland County Megacast on their Facebook page. And with that, we want to bring into the show our good friend, Debbie Binder. She's a West Bloomfield Township Clerk. Those that watch the show, you know Debbie quite well. Are you rested up yet after the election?
We're getting there. I can't say we're quite rested up. It's, there's still a lot of activity surrounding the election, but we are, we definitely are in slower times and able to take a much needed breath because we were in hyperdrive working overtime and to make that election happen. So it is a bit of a relief right now. We joke, we go from 100 miles an hour to down to 0 quickly. So it's a little bit of a letdown, except it's also a relief. So we're getting there. We're trying to still catch up on sleep that we lost for probably 9 months out of this year with all of the election times.
So we won't, we're not even going to dig into this was a crazy election, probably the craziest that so many people remember in recent history, and probably the craziest for you and your team and so many other people here in the state of Michigan. So let's just put the politics aside and forget the lawsuit and all the craziness that is still going on surrounding this previous election. And can you just give us some general information about what happens after the election for you and your team members?
Well, we like to, after there's still a lot of follow-up because there's an audit that's done of every precinct. The County Board of Canvassers looks through every single precinct, does an audit of every precinct in every jurisdiction. So there's a lot of preparation of, you turn the materials over for that, and then you have to do any explanation of anything that's out of balance, or digging into things to explain something that's out of balance. So there's a lot of follow-up work. And then there's a retention schedule that you keep all of your ballots locked up in case there was a recount. And then once they're removed, they go into a different storage bag where they're held for a retention period. So as are the applications. So there's a lot of administrative follow-up work to an election. So we have still been working on that. And then we will start also taking, while it's fresh in our mind, we take the lessons learned from one election. We have a powwow to come up with ideas, things that work, things that didn't work, so that we plan differently where needed for next year. While it's still fresh, because there comes a point at which you don't remember every little detail. So last week we did have that meeting, and I'll be having the meeting in the upcoming week with more of my election workers to again get feedback and get comments and guidelines to do things differently, next time. That being said, it has been a very crazy year, but this was overall a pretty, smooth election as far as things go. What we did have this time was a very high turnout. We had, we always have high turnout in West Bloomfield, but between an increase in registered voters, we have over 56,600 registered voters in West Bloomfield right now. We had a 79% turnout. And of the turnout, we had 75% of those ballots were cast by absentee. So we were really busy beforehand issuing ballots and working with the absentee voting population. That kept us busy. And then the follow-up is just all of the administrative stuff that takes place after every single election. The audit that takes place after every single election. So we've been busy with those things, but we are finding time now where my staff was working overtime, beyond what they ever wanted. Now everybody gets a chance to get a little bit of a breather. And I'm just so proud of my staff and for what they did to make this election go, to happen with the number of ballots that we issued. Twice as many absentee ballots as we've ever had. And with West Bloomfield, I know we spoke many times on this program that each of our ballots was a two-sheet ballot. That was 4 times the number of pages we've ever processed. So I'm just proud of my team in the office. I'm proud of my election workers. Did a great job. They got the job done. We're obviously in a pandemic environment for 2 and really probably 3 of the elections. We took precautions. We made sure everybody had PPE that they needed. Some of the processing in the AV County Board does not provide for social distancing. So we took extra precautions to keep people safe. And as far as I know, we had no spread that came from working in an election. So I'm just proud of my staff. I'm proud of my team. I'm proud of my election workers. And I'm proud of the fact that everyone took this seriously, took the job seriously, and took the precautions seriously to conduct an election in a COVID environment and throw in a little bit of luck. I'm not going to lie. There's a little bit of luck that's involved too in managing a staff of about 400 people, where we had 105 in the absent voter counting board and over 20 in my office on many days, and we were able to prevent any spread. So there was a lot of effort involved, but there was also some luck. I'm grateful that it played out as it did, and grateful that everybody in the community that contributed to helping get the word out. One other thing I'd like to bring up, Ronnie, because I really do credit you and Tyler for helping get this word out. I remember, if you remember, we talked about in August, 20% of our absentee ballots came in on election day. That created quite a challenge for us to verify signatures and do the stuff that we do when they come in late like that on election day. Using that messaging that you helped us get out, we reduced the number of ballots that came in on election day from 20% of our ballots to 4% of our ballots came in on election day. So that means in an election that was twice the size, we had less than half the number of absentee ballots that came in on election day. Made it much easier for us to conduct, the absent voter counting board on election day. And I thank you guys for your involvement in helping get that message out. It clearly made a difference. That's a significant, benefit to the board.
And with that, though, we're always happy to help because it's such a small portion of what you and your team does each and every day. But with that, do you think this next election, the way of the absentee ballot is going to be the way of the future? Is that number going to continue to grow, or did we just see it because we were also in the middle of a pandemic?
I think the answer will lie somewhere in the middle. I think you will see an increase that was allowed with Proposal 3 of 2018 and people who were given the right to vote by absentee for no reason. I think you will see that some of those voters that make that choice because it's an easier choice, there's people who like to sit at their table and vote, but I think you will also see people who made that choice based on the pandemic. I am typically a poll voter. I like to go to the polls. I like to cast my ballot there. I like to see people. I like to leave with my sticker. And I believe that when it's not in a pandemic year, I will return to the polls. So I think that the answer will be, I think this is a heavily absentee turnout year, but I don't think we'll go back to the old numbers before Proposal 3 either. I think somewhere in the middle will lie the answer, to be seen.
I'm with you. I like to go and actually feed it into the machine and then get my sticker. There's just some type of satisfaction with that. And Debbie, I know that your hands are tied on how the absentee ballots are actually processed because there is a state law. But what would you like to see change in that process going through this past election that could help you and your team so that it's a cleaner process going forward?
First, I guess I would say I think it is a very clean process, and it's not. And I trust when I cast my ballot by absentee, I have complete trust in the process. But I do think that it's a monumental task that's given to the clerks in an age where absentee ballot, even if it goes back down a little bit, you're still going to see the number of absentee ballots at a much higher level than we've ever seen before. So you're looking at clerks who have to meet the demands of processing an increased number of absentee ballots. I think we need to look at increasing the number of days, and it may be something that they need to look at early voting where people can come in and feed their ballot. Early voting does not mean early tabulating. It just means that the voter comes and feeds their ballot through the machine. Machines are not tabulated until the polls are closed. There's no tabulating that's done. So they would be feeding their own ballot, allowing that time ahead of time to count them, or possibly looking at early voting. I'm not sure that I know enough to say what I think the best approach is, but I do think that we need to have a study and look at these numbers are not going to go back to small elections. I don't believe you're seeing more of an engaged electorate. You're seeing more people participate in absentee voting. We won't see the numbers go back to small elections. So I think we do need to look going forward. How can we best meet the needs that will be placed on clerks, the demands placed on clerks going forward to process an ever increasing number of absentee ballots. Also recognizing that there's just, in most cases, there's an increase in registered voters. We saw a huge increase in registered voters as well. So I think we're looking at constantly increasing numbers in engaged electorate. We need to make sure we can meet those demands. Every clerk I know works so hard to make sure that every voter's voice is heard. So we just want to make sure that it's a reasonable demand going forward. The numbers aren't going to go back.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing that you just brought up, because I think for the general public, a lot of people just think that one of the reasons that you can't actually process some of the ballots earlier is because there is a fear that the information is going to get out about this party or that party. So maybe some people won't vote, or this, that, and the other. But if no numbers are even tabulated, what's the difference if I run it through, 3 days before versus 7 o'clock that morning?
There's probably concern that there's people in there but they take an oath to not share information. It's a sequestered board, and there are a lot of logistics that would need to be worked out that I don't have the expertise to say how are we going to work out some of those logistics. Early voting, the voter actually puts their ballot through. Again, the results aren't tabulated. So which approach is the best going forward, I think, is worthy of discussion and exploration. That being said, what we've done now, again, I am a poll voter just because I like the energy, but it's not because I don't trust the process of absentee voting. I'm very confident in the process of absentee voting as it is. I just think that looking at logistics to allow for time would help clerks, especially clerks that get a large volume to process in a very short period of time. And again, I looking at other states, there are so many other states that have different dynamics where it works out. I think it's worthy of exploring what works well in other states. We don't have to necessarily reinvent the wheel. We can look at how we meet the demands that are coming in a way that has worked in other places.
And with that, does it take more poll workers to be able to process when you have more absentee ballots?
Yes, we increased all of our numbers this year. We increased the number that were in the precinct as well, because it just wasn't predictable exactly where our turnout was going to be. But in an absent voter counting board, they work in teams. And there's actually 5 team captains overseeing a team of 5 precincts in each one. And each precinct has 3 people working on the ballots. And multiple parties, at least the 2 major parties, plus any additional parties, are represented and involved in a lot of the processes, as well as challengers being in the room overseeing it. So we have had to, just by the nature of the increase, we've had to increase the number of people we've had in the absent voter counting board to make sure that each team has the support they need to meet the demands. And remember, we get a lot of military and overseas voters. We have a lot of military and overseas voters that vote, and those ballots come in on an electronic version that they get, and they have to be duplicated onto a ballot that will go through the tabulator. That duplication takes place in a team of 2 different people representing 2 different parties. where they read back and forth. We use a process called read and verify, where one person reads, the other person verifies, then the other person reads back, the other person verifies. So there's a dual check in there to make sure that it's accurate. But all of our military and overseas ballots do come back that way, and every one of our service people deserve a right to be heard. And it takes tremendous effort to make sure that all of those ballots are duplicated. And that was one of the things. We had a large number this year of military and overseas ballots.
Well, the good thing is that the numbers are increasing because I think that's the positive that came out of this past election. So many more people are taking advantage of the process that other people fought for and died for them to have the right to vote and have their voices heard. So it's great that people are actually taking advantage of that. Debbie, do you have a number at all with how many votes were spoiled because people didn't do simple things like, didn't fill in things correctly or this, that, and the other?
I have to check the final number. As far as late ballots, we only had about 29 that were late. And we had last I checked, I think it was like a little over 100 that for some other reason, weren't counted. Whether there wasn't a ballot inside, the signature didn't match, we didn't reach the person. When we get a signature that doesn't match or a signature that's missing, that verification takes place as soon as we receive the ballot back, because we're looking to give a voter an opportunity to cure the problem. So if they forgot to sign or they used it, if the signature doesn't match, we're in contact with that voter, if we can be, to give them an opportunity to come up and cure the signature issue, whether it's signing a new registration form or signing again on the ballot, or signing it if they forgot. Those processes take place. I know we had a lot of people that we reached that said, "Wow, you really do check." We really do check, so we, and we ended up, it was funny. We had a duo that came in that had received calls, and it turned out to be a mother and daughter. And we had no clue until they walked in the door, and the mother and daughter had both received calls to come in and cure a signature issue. So, we are doing that early. As soon as we get the ballots, we address the signature issues so that voter has an opportunity to cure.
That is important because my signature is all over the place. So you really do have to pay attention to how you sign things and have an official signature that you use on all documents.
And Ronnie, some of it, because we'll go back to there was a lot of people. There were a lot of people talking about that. We were looking at what somebody signed when they were 18 on their voter registration card, but we're looking at their license. So if you sign their license, what your license looks like, you're almost guaranteed to be okay. If we have a question, we have a file of what we call MasterCards that we'll go look at the MasterCards as well to verify the signature. We did have a woman who came in and she felt badly because hers turned out to be rejected. And she said, my signature is so sloppy. I just took such painstaking efforts to make it perfect so you could read it. Well, it didn't match what was on her license, and she never received our messages to come in and cure the problem. And that is what it is sometimes. People think, okay, well, I have a scribble signature as my normal signature, and I'm going to make sure that they can read my name very clearly. Well, we're looking at it compared to what is your scribble signature on your license. That's the one we're looking to match to.
That's good information to know. Debbie Binder here with us on the Oakland County Megacast. She's the West Bloomfield Township Clerk. Debbie, you have other responsibilities in your office there outside of just the election. Do you want to give us an update on where other things are standing right now? And is your office open to the public?
Our office is open to the public. So if anybody needs something that a clerk's office would do, we are absolutely open to the public. Our staffing is such that we have one person who's there full time because the window has been quieter, and to just accommodate and make it safer for COVID, we're trying to keep the concentration of people in the office down. So we're going in on an as needed basis, but there is at least one person there, if not more, at all times. And the phones are answered during normal business hours. We are doing business in the clerk's office, open for business for walk-in, available for calls, and any of the processes that we normally would be doing are available. We're still having meetings. We're still preparing agendas. We're still doing follow-up on the agendas. We're gearing up. We did take a break from passports, and because the break with COVID turned out to be a little bit longer than we realized, we have to go through a recertification. So we will be open in February again for passports, but everything else we're doing right now.
What are some of the other services that people need to visit the clerk's office for?
Well, we're the Freedom of Information Act coordinator for the township. So anything that's a Freedom of Information request comes through our office. Anything that has to do with an agenda, or the agenda goes through our office. We procure the materials for the agenda. We do the follow-up on the agenda. We made the availability of, most of our agenda and follow-up things are available online now. But we are always kind of a point person for anybody to contact. We do a lot of the licensing and permits that aren't related to building through the township. We are oftentimes the hub that people contact first for anything in the township, and we direct to the correct place for information. We do passport acceptance agency. We offer notary services. We have maps available. And we're just kind of the cog in the wheel for a lot of different areas in town hall. If you needed a place to start, we're the place you would start, and we would make sure you went to the correct place that you were trying to reach.
Well, that's good to know. Debbie, anything that maybe I didn't touch on that you want to share with the viewers and the listeners before we let you go?
Just that I hope everyone has a safe and healthy holiday season. I appreciate you entrusting me to continue as your clerk. I promise you that I will serve you as I've always done and do my best and with integrity and honesty. I am grateful for the opportunity. And I want to let you know that the clerk's office is accessible. I'm accessible. We're a big town. We're 67,000 residents and 56,600 registered voters, but we're small enough that if you call the township, you're going to get me on the phone. And I welcome people, calling 248-451-4848 if you have any questions or you want to speak.
Debbie, great to have you with us. Happy holidays to you and your family as well. We're going to take a quick break here on the Oakland County Megacast. We still have a lot to get to in the second hour.
Michigan, the coronavirus pandemic has put us all to the test. And now it's time to put COVID-19 to the test. As we move forward, testing will be critical. We encourage anyone who has reason to get tested to do so, those with symptoms and those without. If you are leaving home and going back to work, get tested. If you think you may have COVID-19 or you've been exposed recently through family, friends, or coworkers, get tested. Our test locator tool can help you find the right testing site that fits your needs. Even if you're looking for easy access with no cost, no prescription, and no appointment necessary, we've got you covered. Help Michigan move forward, not backward. To find a testing site or learn more, visit michigan.gov/coronavirus test. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. Michigan, we still need to stay careful because we don't want to go backwards, back to where we started. So keep standing 6 feet apart, keep wearing a mask in public, and if you have symptoms, talk to a healthcare provider about getting tested. To move forward, let's all do our part. So stay careful. Michigan.gov/coronavirus.
You're listening to 89.3 WBLD Orchard Lake, 88.1 WBFH Bloomfield Hills. I'm Ronnie Dahl here in my home studio while Mr. Tyler Keefe holds things down back there in West Bloomfield. Just about an hour left here in the Friday edition of the Oakland County Megacast. Tyler, I will say, where does the week go?
It's been a surprisingly quick week. I'm thoroughly shocked at how quick this week went by. We're already to Friday, and then the week went by really quickly this week, which means the weekend's going to go by even quicker. And before we know it, we're going to breathe a couple times. Boom, boom. We're going to be right back here on Monday.
That is true. The weekends fly by, but and so does this show. 2 hours. It's like that, just like that. And in the last hour here of the Oakland County Megacast, we still have a lot to get to. And our first guest up here, let's go ahead and while COVID-19 has changed the way so many of us live, it has not changed life itself, has not stopped life itself. And that includes over at the Greater West Bloomfield Historical Society. They are still on the job each and every day, although they have had to change how they do things. And with us today on the Oakland County Megacast is Corey Taylor. She's the Office and Activities Coordinator for the Greater West Bloomfield Historical Society. So great to have you with us here.
Thank you for having me.
I know we've talked to you a couple times before, Corey, but I will say it really is kind of an exciting time from a historical standpoint, and that you're living and documenting a pandemic in your lifetime.
Yeah, it is. I actually just had this conversation, a similar one a couple nights ago with Gina Gregory, our president, and we're still collecting things, masks and different COVID signs and all sorts of stuff, and it's been very interesting to see it from the different perspectives of the community members, that we share a lot, but there's also some things that are different. So it's been very interesting to see.
So, it's been 100 years since we've been through another pandemic, and at least this time, for historians such as yourself, it's a little bit easier to document what we are going through because of technology.
You're definitely right about that. We've been communicating a lot with our community members through emails and social media, and just that is, a new thing in my lifetime. So it's definitely helped a lot to keep in contact with people, and just like we're doing right now with our Zoom things, we've been able to keep our programming going. So it's definitely a different, looking at the last pandemic and this one, and even though it's still ongoing, comparing the two, they're two ends of a spectrum basically. So it's in a lot of ways it's good because it's bringing us up to speed on technology, but not good because we can't be together in the same room, but good and bad things.
But I do wonder what things were possibly not documented during the first, the Spanish flu pandemic because technology wasn't there. So we're missing so many pieces of that puzzle from that time, I think.
Yeah, you're right. And I think also because a lot of, communication was done through letter writing or messengers, or word of mouth. And now we get everything right literally at our fingertips. So we're seeing things as they're happening, as they're progressing. And I think that is something, again, it has good and bad things. It might not be good to see everything happening all at once, but it is good in terms of, we have more information, we have more ways to communicate other than, just those, I guess, snail mail now is what it's called, but back then it was just mail. So I think looking at it from that perspective is also very interesting.
So from someone who's trying to document this time, I think about, when you go back and you had photographs, because you had to get them printed, right? Now, no one is even printing a picture. It's all on their phone. You have 35,000 in your phone, but not one of them is actually printed to put into a keepsake box like was done back in the day. So do you think that there is also kind of a downside to the technology that is not going to preserve what we're going through?
Yeah, I think so. I've always been somebody who, likes to print pictures and make scrapbooks and stuff. And that's kind of a dying art, because people don't want that, they think of it as clutter now, and everything is on, we don't have picture frames. We have digital, Google Homes. So we have all of our photos synced from our phones. And, even from my childhood, that's completely different, because my parents always had picture frames, all over the house. And now in my own home, we just have digital frames, which is great because I can see all of my pictures all at once, but it's also sometimes I like having, a memory of one specific, experience or event or person. But I think in terms of documenting this time, it's great because people can just snap pictures and send them to us, instantly. And we've had that, a few times. But I think also people just snap a picture and then put their phone away and then forget that they've taken the picture. So I think that also, that's definitely a downside.
Corey Taylor with us here on the Oakland County Megacast. She's the Office and Activities Coordinator for the Greater West Bloomfield Historical Society. And with that, Corey, do you guys have any new projects that you're working on over there?
Yeah, definitely. So we started our virtual programming in August, kind of doing our normal thing. We have an open house the second Sunday of every month, and then we have a secondary program either put on with West Bloomfield Parks or the West Bloomfield Library. And this month, in 2 days, on Sunday, December 13th, we have our monthly open house. One of our local historians, she has a collection of about 150 vintage 'Twas the Night Before Christmas books that she's going to be talking about and, kind of going through her collection on Sunday. So we have that, and we're putting together all of our 2021 programming now that we're planning on everything being virtual, with the possibility of, if it's deemed safe, we'll do stuff in person. But as of right now, for the foreseeable future, everything's going to be virtual. So we have our programming, and we've also entered the world of filmmaking. It's not anything that's going to be seen in Hollywood anytime soon, but we're starting some artifact highlights, short 1 to 2 minute videos on various artifacts in our collections. And then we've also developed some virtual tours, one of which is already up on our YouTube page. And it's me. I did a walking tour around the Orchard Lake Museum. We have a couple new outdoor exhibits that we wanted to highlight. So we have a total of 11 now. So you can see me walking around the museum and talking about all of our artifacts outside. And in the next few months, we'll have a couple other virtual tours that we'll be releasing.
So in Corey, going virtual, in one side, it actually reaches more people. But on the other side, people like that in-person experience. So what are you seeing from your angle? Are you getting more people to log in and to tune in and to enjoy what's in their backyard?
Yes, I think so. We generally, the museum used to be only open 3 hours the second Sunday of every month. So we would literally only be open for 3 hours every month. And during that time, we'd have maybe 20 people, if it's a really popular open house, maybe 30. And now consistently, we've had about 35, 38 people join us for every open house or presentation. So for us, that's not a very large number to somebody, but for us, we're such a small organization that, having that many people come join us, for every event is pretty phenomenal. And I think, like you said, the one person that we see in the Zoom call could be 4 people, sitting at home watching us. So I think that's definitely, we miss seeing the people in person. That's kind of why you go into a business like a museum, or a historical society. You like talking to people and, hearing their stories and sharing history together. But I think we've sort of reached a middle ground where, even though we can't do that, we can still sort of do that from our homes. So it's definitely, we've seen an increase in viewership more than we thought possible.
Corey, they're lucky to have you there on the team, because I will say, when I was on the Cable Commission, trying to reach the older audience and share with them like technology and why Twitter and how to hashtag and how this could help increase this, that, and the other. It could be a stretch sometimes for people. And it's no different, by the way, with me with like TikTok and Snapchat. I'm like, wait, but they're lucky to have someone from your generation there as part of the team. But with that, what sparked your interest in history?
Well, I think that goes back to, you know, my earliest memory. My parents and my grandparents, both sets of grandparents, loved history, and they loved sharing history and, you know, just going to museums. I mean, I grew up going to museums and libraries, and I think it was just sort of ingrained in me from, you know, a very young age. And I, you know, going through school, I always loved history classes and reading and all sorts of subjects associated with those. And then when I went to college, I tried to put together some sort of career that would, you know, allow me to do all of the things that I love. And I kind of landed on that with the Historical Society. You know, I get to talk to a small group of people, not a very large group, because that's very overwhelming to me, but, you know, a small group that shares interest in local history and broader history. And, you know, I get to do kind of everything that I love, all in one place. So
That's so awesome. But I'm sure you get the question from people, why should I care about history?
Yes, I get that a lot. And I've tried to come up with a great answer, and it changes every time depending on the person that I talk to. And, you know, history is important to everyone, just like we're living through right now. You know, we knew that we had a pandemic 100 years ago, and if that wasn't documented, if history like that wasn't taught, you know, we wouldn't know what not to do, kind of thing. You know, we need to know about, you know, wars that happened and other, you know, happy things like, you know, the different, you know, women's rights movements and civil rights movements. You know, we need to know about those things so that we can continue to either right the wrongs of the past or know that they happened, learn that they happened, and not repeat them. And we need to preserve that for future generations. And like, you know, my kids and grandkids are going to need to know about what we went through in 2020. And so if we don't document that, then, you know, everything lives on the internet, but if the internet changes in 20, 30 years, you know, how are they going to know what we went through and experienced? So I think explaining that it means something to the future generation. You're not preserving history for yourself, you're preserving it for other people.
I love that. But you also just brought up a great point, is that technology has changed so much just in the last 10 years. So if we're documenting these things, but we're doing it in a format that is no longer available, could it get lost in the future because we didn't do it in a way that is accessible to all people for generations to come?
Yeah, that's actually, it's funny you mentioned that. We're running into that right now. We have a collection of cassette tapes and CDs and VHS tapes that, you know, I know what they are, but, you know, somebody who's 9 or 10 looks at me like I have horns growing out of my head when I say, you know, it's a VHS tape. You know, I grew up on those. And so we have, you know, locally made, you know, stories that are recorded on these formats, and we're working on ways of digitizing them so we can have them online, and share them once again, because these things haven't been viewed in 20, 30 years. So, you know, that's something we've been running into, but it's a fun challenge, I guess, at least for people like me. But we definitely need to preserve those in a way that we can view them again in 30 years.
Oh, so true. Corey Taylor here with us on the Oakland County Megacast. She's the Office and Activities Coordinator for the Greater West Bloomfield Historical Society. And with that, Corey, just a couple minutes left with you here on the show. Do you want to talk about some of the programs that you have going on, or do you still need any type of items from the public, like just the general public? If I'm watching for the first time, what type of things would you want to help you document this time that we're going through?
Yeah, we, you know, this is an ongoing collection that we've started in May, and anything that people would like to give, stories, photos. We had one submission that was just a photo, but it was a a little boy meeting or seeing his grandparents through a window back in June, and it was just a one sentence caption that said, his name, seeing his grandparents, and it wasn't a lot, but it was powerful because they couldn't touch each other, they couldn't give hugs, they couldn't anything, but they still managed to see each other, and that's what we want to document, that's what we want to preserve. And it's everyday people, their stories, how their lives have changed, for good or bad, but we'd like to be able to look back at this collection and have a glimpse into the lives of people. So anything, you can go to our website and there's links on there on how to donate stories and files and everything, but we're still actively collecting anything that you'd like to give.
So give us the website again for people to be able to do that.
Sure, it's www.gwbhs.org. Again, that's just Greater West Bloomfield Historical Society, gwbhs.org.
Well, Corey, thank you so much for being with us. We always appreciate having you on the show, and we wish you the best of luck, because are you the person who's trying to take all this information and make it into a storyline?
Yep. I'm going to be the one to archive it and put it in our database and organize it all when it comes in. So organize it as best as you can before you submit it to lessen the work for me. But anything that you can give would be greatly appreciated.
Oh, well, thank you so much. And thank you for all that you are doing, because it is going to be interesting to see how people view this in 20 or 30 or even 40 years when we talk about this pandemic that we have all lived through. But I do love the image that you painted with that one photograph. And I think that really does sum up this pandemic for so many of us.
Definitely.
Corey Taylor with us. She's the Office and Activities Coordinator, Greater West Bloomfield Historical Society. If you have something you want to donate to the Historical Society so they can document this crazy time in our lives, then please do so. We're going to take a quick break here on the Oakland County Megacast, and when we come back, we'll be changing the subject just a little bit, but it's a very important subject: high school sports during the pandemic. This is the Oakland County Megacast.
Michigan, we're calling on you to save lives. Don't ignore it. Don't let it go to voicemail. It's urgent. In fact, it's critical. Because if you've been in close contact with someone who tests positive for COVID-19, you may have been exposed to the virus. And you could get a call from My COVID Help or your local health department. So please answer the call to learn how to protect yourself, your family, and friends. We're calling on you to stop the spread of COVID-19, to make it safe to reopen businesses and help Michigan move forward. So if you get a call from My COVID Help or your local health department, you may have been exposed to someone with COVID-19. To protect us all, answer the call. Learn more at michigan.gov/containcovid. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
Hi, my name is Kurt Lawson, and I'm the Public Information Officer for West Bloomfield Township. We wanted to reach out to you, our older adults, to provide information that you may find useful during this difficult time. We want to ensure you that West Bloomfield Town Hall, our Waters and Utility Department, West Bloomfield Parks, and our police and fire departments continue to work hard on your behalf. Information and resources can be found on the Township website, the police Facebook and Twitter, or call West Bloomfield Park's COVID-19 Help Hotline. Please remember to keep your social distance of at least 6 feet, wear facial coverings when you leave your home, and wash your hands for at least 20 seconds with soap. These precautions will help keep you safe during these difficult times.
Just about 40 minutes left in the Friday edition of the Oakland County Megacast. I'm Ronnie Dahl in my home studios. Tyler is back in the studio in West Bloomfield holding down things there. We want to say thank you, as always, for tuning into the show. You can catch us on Civic Center TV, Birmingham Area Municipal Access. If you have Comcast, channel 15, 99 on AT&T, but also if you're out driving around, you can tune us into the radio, 89.3 Lakes FM, 88.1 FM, The Biff. And we also want to say thank you to the West Bloomfield Clerk's Office for allowing us to live stream today's edition on their Facebook page. And that is what is the Oakland County Megacast, is that we are pretty much everywhere. Social media, along with TV and radio. And our goal here is trying to educate you during this crisis and this pandemic, because the news and the information changes on a pretty consistent basis. And that includes everything that is happening right now with our high school sports. John Johnson with us now on the Oakland County Megacast. He's the Director of Broadcast Properties for MHSAA, the Michigan High School Athletic Association. John, we just had you on, but then the governor throws you and your team a curveball with this latest extension of the shutdown. Can you tell us where things stand right now?
Well, Ronnie, I think it was more of a beanball. It was aimed at our head, and not something that we had to try and bend over and try and see if we could hit it. Where we're at right now, and with all due respect, there's an awful lot going on that we have to be cautious about during this period of time. So you can see, as we've had throughout this pandemic, having different views of what can we do, what should we do? Yes, you can do that. No, you can't do that. You know, and everybody in the school sports world is all over the place, as people in government and business and all that. But you know, for our corner of the world, we were hopeful that we were going to be getting school sports back on track. We would have a couple of days of practice under our belt until the announcement early this week. It took us off track to try to do what we're really committed to do, and that is bring some closure to the fall sports season during the month of December. It doesn't make a lot of sense to try to carry it much farther forward, although we're looking at models that you know, we still might try that. It just all depends on where this goes. You got to wait and see what the numbers say. Got to wait and see what the science says.
John, with that, a couple of questions. The first one being, have there been any outbreaks that you're aware of connected to any of the high school sporting events?
The data that we have shows that we got in over 95% of our football games this fall. And we had some weekends where you may have had as many as 10 or 15 schools affected by COVID. But if you look at the big number, that's not even 10% of our schools were affected by that. The soccer tournament came off without a hitch. Volleyball, which is trying to get its last weekend, came off with very few teams needing to withdraw. And so, you know, we feel that school sports have found a way to do this as safely as possible, and certainly aren't causing any of the spreader events. Now, having said that, maybe the after game parties at some parent's house, you know, has contributed to that. We know of instances like that, but you put the kids between the lines, put them on a football field or a volleyball court, we're not contributing to the problem.
And that's what's so hard about this. It's because some of these outbreaks are associated with activities outside of the games and the actual sport itself, but yet it is factoring into some of these decision makings.
Well, you know, the association, guilt by association sometimes. If you don't have the games, maybe you don't have the party afterwards. You know, we've always had a Selection Sunday show for a number of years on Fox Sports Detroit to announce the playoff pairings at the end of October. You couldn't believe the number of schools that called us and said, hey, wait a minute, we usually have a big party, you know, to celebrate the end of the season and, you know, look forward to the playoffs. And we said, well, you know what, you're going to find out well before the show would come on, because everybody got into the playoffs this year. And what you're proposing is exactly what we don't want. keep your parents and your kids apart. Get as tight into your bubble as you can. And don't do these things that are really causing problems. And of course, we're anxiously waiting to see now what the Thanksgiving numbers are going to bring us here over the next few days. Now, as those numbers will, start to come in, but it's all about staying in your lane, keeping to yourself, doing what you can in a smart way to avoid the virus. I saw that Michigan State basketball, men's and women's, for Thanksgiving, what do? They had the kids into the Breslin Center for dinner. And of course, they're cohorted. They're all together. They all know they're all okay, but their parents were on Zoom. You got to find the ways to be creative and create the interaction, maintain those contacts, but do it smart.
So, John, I'm going to ask you one last question, and then I want to throw things over to Tyler, because he is definitely the sports guru between this team. And with that, I know that the council met earlier to talk about the possibility of some of these playoffs actually happening in the month of December. Any decisions, or are you just going to scrap the season?
Nothing to scrap yet. The council met to get an update on information. And for people who don't know what that is, the Representative Council is the governing body of the MHSAA. It's made up of 19 educators from different parts of the state. In fact, we have a representative from West Bloomfield on that board. And they are the ones that make the decisions, not necessarily the staff. The staff will funnel stuff to the board to make a decision. It comes down to the staff. We execute it with the schools. But they met earlier this week to get an update. We'll meet midweek next week to get another update, because we have been in communication with the governor's office and with Director Gordon's office at the Department of Health and Human Services, is trying to make that one last pitch. Let us get these games in. We think we can do it smartly. So we'll find out more next week.
John Johnson joining us on the Oakland County Megacast. He is the Director of Broadcast Properties at the Michigan High School Athletics Association, the MHSAA. Currently, fall sports are suspended under the governor in the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services 3-week pause to save lives, which was extended, of course, for an additional 12 days, now expiring on December 20th. And John, the playoffs, particularly for football, which still has 3 weeks left, the regional finals, the semifinals, and then the state finals, should that season continue on, it's going to continue at a time where where 2 of those last 3 weeks, really one of those last 3 weeks, you presumably would be able to have the full teams playing football. And then you have some players that will leave for early enrollment at the beginning of the year. They will graduate early and they will not be eligible. And then from there, you'd finish the season presumably at the end of the year, or be playing games packed into a short period of time. Take into effect also Michigan weather going into late December and into January, although we've had an abnormally not very snowy season so far. This winter.
Would be a great day to play.
It would be. It would be a beautiful day to play. Absolutely.
Cold, but it's beautiful.
So with that, should all those conditions come together, where you have a limited amount of time to get these games in before you're anticipating weather issues, you have a limited amount of time to get these games in with these full teams at their full potential to give all these schools an equal chance to put their best foot forward. What is the MHSAA hearing from the schools themselves so far regarding, now that the season's going to be has been suspended for at least another 12 days with this pause continuing? Do they even want to continue this season at this point, or do they believe that it may be too packed in to be done effectively?
Well, as I said off the top here with Ronnie, there's different schools of thought, even within our membership, about this. A lot of people right now are saying, hey, let's be thankful for what we got. We got our districts and our regionals in volleyball. Basketball didn't even get that in last winter. Baseball didn't have a season. Softball, lacrosse, track didn't have a season. Everybody at least has had, a season, even though right now we're still trying to, conclude the postseason tournaments. And Tyler, we're probably in our last ditch effort now to get things in within what we think is the most reasonable window, and that's to finish where we might traipse a week into January. We're looking at some different models that we haven't put out there because we don't want to put some dates out there, have people get excited about it, and then have something which is beyond our control say, oh, we can't go. But we are looking at models which would take us into early January to finish our games in football. It would take us a little bit longer farther into January to finish volleyball and swimming, but that comes at the request of those two communities. So at the end of the day, we're still in a lot of ways member driven. Swimming says we need a few weeks of practice to get our times reasonably, or get our kids reasonably in shape to be able to swim in a competitive situation. Volleyball wants a couple of weeks, so we're looking at some things that, we would still finish volleyball in early January and swimming maybe a week thereafter, but nothing right now. We haven't even put any of this in writing. Yeah, these are things that we're thinking about, and I think it's going to be all determined by that announcement that we'll get a week from now, which will be whether or not the pause continues. Because as it is right now, even though we've got another request into the state government to let us play, there's some things we've learned. Hey, you can't control. You can plan the best you can, but at the end of the day, you got to wait and be dealt your hand of cards.
Yeah, I had a great geometry professor at OCC in the semester I took it there, who said, when in doubt, do something. Staying stagnant and saying, I don't know what to do, is not a solution. Do something, make some sort of a plan, figure something out. And that's what it seems to be is happening between the high schools, between their athletic departments and the MHSAA at that time. So, John, you mentioned about time needed for practice. And with having this amount of time off from their fall sports in particularly, having this much time off, then coming back into highly competitive environments, finishing out the postseason where everybody is fighting their hardest for a state championship. I hate to harken on football specifically, but you did mention swimming and volleyball as other sports. So for football, where it is so highly physical, where it will be in much colder conditions, where injury is a little bit higher of a possibility, how much time have you been hearing, or has the MHSAA been hearing they may need in some of these models for reconditioning their football players to get back in the shape where it's safe to play these games? Because all of this has been done with the focus on player and staff safety during COVID-19, and that also is going to certainly be paramount coming back for the physical conditioning necessary to play competitive football at any level, let alone a state championship level.
Right. Well, we think our schools, first of all, did a good job during that pause that we had in August to September. And we were able to bring people back with about a week of practice then. And that's what one of the things that we're talking about looks like is a week of practice before the first games. You do have to consider to take a look at our friends in the college and professional levels. There's not that much hitting that goes on at this time of the year, and even high schools are starting to pick that up. The contact, once we've gotten this far into the season, pre-pandemic, there would not be a lot of contact going on at this point in time. There'd be a lot of scouting and that kind of stuff that you'd be working on. So it would probably be at least a week to get schools ready. We certainly haven't had any pushback, because that was what the plan was going to be if we had been able to kick things off or start practice back on the 4th. So I think people are comfortable and ready to do what it takes. You mentioned some of the things with kids who have got plans and to be on college campuses that first week in January. That's just one of the things, unfortunately, that happens. I mean, kids make decisions, and it affects their teams. And, so, it's one of those things, you can't be all things to all people in those kinds of things. You have to take a look at what serves the whole the best.
And that's something we've discussed ad nauseum before in regards to how this affects players that are going to play at the next level. That's such a small percentage of those student athletes at the high school level that are playing these games. For the vast majority of them, for frankly 99% of those players, this is the highest level that they will play at, and that is a 1% that unfortunately is going to be a casualty of the circumstances as they prepare to play at the next level. John Johnson with us, the Director of Broadcast Properties at the Michigan High School Athletic Association. Just another couple minutes with you. In terms of winter and spring sports, obviously the delays in fall sports are going to have some effect on if they finish that season at all. In terms of winter and spring sports, the MHSAA has been adamant they want to get in full seasons of all of their high school sports in this 2020-2021 school year. Are they, with these current delays due to this pause, are those going to have an effect on winter and spring sports? Are we going to maybe see shortened seasons or seasons that may go into the summer shortly after the school year, particularly for spring sports?
I'm not as concerned about the spring, Tyler, as far as that kind of stuff happening as the winter. If you're bringing everybody back to start practicing again, let's use January 4th as the date. You're going to have some compacted weeks. You might see some rules waived that, right now you can only have a certain number of games within a certain period of time. You might see some of that waived. That has some fallout in another direction with referees and facilities. We don't have enough time to talk about all those possibilities. But, we're looking at a variety of things to try to, do the best we can. And, maybe the winter does get strung out a little bit. If you think to the end of March and the beginning of April, in a lot of parts of our state, they're just barely getting snow off the baseball field at the beginning of April, especially to the north. So not as worried about the spring, as we are maybe a more compacted winter schedule. And if the lessons of the fall have taught us this, if we can be playing, if government will let us play sports in the spring, we're not going to have any problems. We might go a little later, maybe not. But what we know from the fall, if the government says you can play, spring, I don't see any problems with. Winter, being indoors brings a lot of different challenges, masks and, all kinds of things that go with that. We're looking at things in wrestling, like only having kids wrestle once a week so that you got tracing for if something does happen. So there's a lot of motion, a lot of gears turning, but we're committed to try to finish out 3 sports seasons here in 2021.
Well, John, we want to thank you very much for joining us on the program today. Before we let you go, we do want to mention that we know that this is you're coming into the final days of your career with the Michigan High School Athletic Association. You are retiring, and we want to congratulate you on a wonderful career with the MHSAA, and thank you for always being so courteous with us with your time and the information from the MHSAA, and wish you a very happy retirement. Very much deserved.
Well, thanks to everybody there. We appreciate all you do to help us get the word out about high school sports and discuss the issues. It's been a pleasure to be with you folks.
Absolutely.
So, John, before we let you go, what are you going to do with your retirement?
For a year, probably nothing. We got some family matters to take care of and want to spend more time at home. But in another year or so, I might actually rejoin the staff in a part-time role. The young lady you were talking to before we went on the air was talking about, archiving a lot of stuff about the pandemic. The thing that I'm discussing with Mark Ewell, our director, is we have got years and years of photographs and box scores and videotapes and all kinds of stuff that need to get out into the open, that people need to see. People love this stuff. And so I might get a chance to go back on a part-time basis and archive that. And that's a nice way of saying I get to clean up the mess that I made over 34 years.
Well, we wish you the best of luck and happy holidays to you and your family as well.
Same to you folks.
We're going to take a quick break here on the Oakland County Megacast, and then we'll round out the show. The Chief of Rochester Police Department will be joining us next. This is the Oakland County Megacast.
This may seem uncomfortable, but so is being hooked to an IV, sleeping in a hospital bed, and fighting for your life. When it comes to COVID-19, comfort is not as important as saving lives. Wearing a mask can greatly reduce the chance of spreading the virus. So mask up, Michigan, every time you leave home.
As rivals, we don't always see eye to eye.
Like who scored the best recruits?
Who's gonna be who?
And whether we wear green
or blue.
But one thing we can all agree on to help stop the spread of COVID-19. Wear a mask.
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 The ball's in your court, Michigan.
Tyler, it was great to have John Johnson with us here on the Oakland County Megacast. Possibly one of his last interviews there with his career with the MHSAA, and we wish him the best.
Yeah, absolutely. JJ's been an excellent partner for us here at Civic Center TV and Lakes FM. He's had a long professional relationship also with our general manager, Dave Scott. So we've been in contact with him for years over here at Civic Center TV, long before the Megacast. And of course, he's one of our favorite people to talk to about high school sports and broadcasting and all that encompasses going into high school coverage and sports coverage in the state of Michigan. So he'll definitely be missed, and not maybe a year or so from now when he starts doing that archiving project, we'll have to give him a call and talk to him about that. That sounds like a really cool look into the history of high school sports in Michigan.
Exactly. But for now, just about 15 minutes left in the show, and we are going to shift our focus just a little bit here and bring in Steve Schettenhelm. He is the chief for the Rochester Police Department. Chief, thank you for being with us.
You bet. Thank you. Good morning.
Your backdrop looks very festive with the lights behind you. So why don't we go ahead and start there? It's the holiday season, but also the season for Grinches.
Well, you know, we hopefully we're going to be in a happy season. I mean, there's so many things that we're not able to do. But one of the things that we've been so happy that we're is to have the lights up in downtown Rochester. And we have had a number of people come down and drive through and walk around and really enjoy the lights and celebrating that comes with them.
It is always a great time of year there. The lights are fabulous. They've done such a good job there in the city putting up that display. And but it also, you know, it's a way to try to attract people to the businesses there in the downtown area. Do you want to talk a little bit about some of the precautions holiday shoppers should be doing this time of year?
Well, we always like people to make sure they can come down and enjoy our downtown or any shopping that they might be doing. But it's always good to be careful and be extra mindful to make sure that women are really aware of where their purses are, that we don't leave valuables in the car that are visible. So if you're doing your shopping, you run in, you have to go back and reload and put things in the car. It's always a good idea to move to another spot so that people aren't watching where you parked and that you put things in there. And to make sure you cover things up and that sort of thing. So it's just taking those extra precautions to be aware of your surroundings so that you're just to ensure your safety when you're out shopping.
Chief, I've done the holiday shopping story for about the past, 15, 20 years. And I will say I've never thought once to actually move my car after I reload it, because that is what we do, right? You're out shopping, yep. You bring your purchases, you throw them into your car, you think, oh, I'm putting it in my trunk, I'm okay, I'm safe, or in the back of your SUV, and you head back indoors.
Yeah, it's just an extra level of precaution just in case somebody is out there walking around and you've just really made your car much more attractable than the one next to it. And also, make sure that car's locked. I mean, whether it be at home or out shopping. I mean, the biggest thing that we can do is individuals to protect ourselves is we always tell people it's to lock your doors, keep the garage doors closed. We don't want to make it easier for bad guys.
With that, this is also kind of the season for a lot of scams. Are you guys seeing any there in Rochester, or any new ones that are unique this time around?
It's usually kind of the same thing reinvented. And we actually just this week have had calls from people that are calling saying that in order to keep them out of jail, that they need to send them money. They use enough information that makes it look like it's coming from us. Right now, we have somebody that's using the name Officer O'Malley. We don't have an Officer O'Malley here, but this guy who's claiming to be O'Malley is convincing people that they have a warrant out for their arrest and they need to give money. That just isn't something that is the way we do business. No police department does. And so we always want to urge people to, not fall for it. And certainly if you have any concern at all, call your local police department and see what information they have about that.
So when you say they're using just enough information so that you fall for it, where are they getting this information?
Well, I don't know that they necessarily have information, but they just gain the confidence of people. And sometimes it's in the way the conversation goes where you unknowingly share information and then they build from that. And so, the internet's full of information as to, where you live and what your house looks like by going on Google Earth. It's not hard to Google somebody and know where they work or maybe know relatives. It's really not hard these days to have enough information. And then if you're a good talker and people are good listeners, then they volunteer some information. And the next thing you know, you're sending, $5,000 overseas and money that you'll never get back.
Yeah. So from a law enforcement standpoint, how hard is it for you to actually investigate these types of crimes and track down the people committing them?
It's very difficult. Technology, while it's our friend when we're trying to do things, it's not our friend when it comes to trying to investigate these cases. They go overseas very quickly, and so our reach to those areas becomes very difficult. The technology roadblocks that they are able to put up in spoofing your phone number. I mean, I can take my phone and I can make it look like it's any other phone number. And so all these things are roadblocks to successfully prosecuting cases. So the best thing we have is prevention. Just don't fall for it.
It's so hard because, like you said, some of them are very creative in the ways that they're doing it. And it's that gift for gab that makes you fall for it.
Oh, for sure. And I think that's the thing that, sometimes it's best, and you don't want to, I guess, appear gullible or that, but it's always good to maybe talk to a trusted friend or family member and say, hey, I got this call. What do you think I should do about it? Because I think sometimes when you get a little clearer perspective from somebody else's point of view, they can kind of guide you in the right place. So, in most cases, first of all, that's not the way any police department does business, and people should always give you time before you make decisions. So I think that's the fastest way, is just to tell them, I can't make that decision. I have to talk to a family member, hang up the phone, and go from there.
So, Chief, while we have you here with us, I know that the governor has extended some of the newest restrictions, or the health department actually, through December 20th, just before the holiday shopping season wraps up. Are you seeing any issues there in your area with some of the businesses not complying?
We occasionally get some calls on it. We go out and investigate those. Most of the time, when we get there, we don't find that to be the case. The people have masks on. So a lot of this is a very transient type of situation where a store may have somebody that doesn't have a mask on. By the time we get there, they've left. A mask slips down, they put it, pull it up. So we do a lot of certainly education and let people know that we did receive a complaint and, I guess impress upon them the importance of following these guidelines, not only for our safety, but also for the comfort of the shoppers that are coming to their stores.
So with that, you're a pretty small department, just about 25, 26 full-time employees. Yep. How much of your time and resources do some of these complaints take away from your other activities?
Well, as I said, I think we've been very lucky. I think they're not been a draw on our staff at all. We get them occasionally. We address them just as in any other call for service, but it hasn't become a burden. And I think that's a tribute to not only our downtown business people, but the people that do come down here and visit the downtown area. So we hope people continue to do that. It's important.
We're in the middle of a second surge right now in the state of Michigan. How is your department holding up? Because you are a smaller department. Have you had any officers become ill? And have you had to quarantine some of those officers as well?
Yeah, we have gone through that where people have felt that they've been exposed. We have had a few officers and staff that have come down with COVID, and we've worked through that. But overwhelmingly, I think we've been very successful in the measures that we take and basically training our officers to be careful and asking them to be mindful both on their on-duty and off-duty conduct, that it's so important to be washing your hands, monitoring your health, and being aware of who you're around and whether they may or may not be infected with COVID.
Is it impacting the decision to allow people to take time off at all during this holiday season?
No, we've been okay as far as that goes. We haven't had to restrict leave time or anything like that.
Oh, that's good to know. The Chief, Steve Schettenhelm, with us here on the Oakland County Megacast. He is the Chief of Police for Rochester Police Department. Chief, I'm noticing you have no beard right now. Did you take part in the No Shave in November?
I didn't. We do have a number of officers. In fact, if you go on our Facebook page, we have a little contest going right now to kind of rate some of the beards. Some of the guys wanted to keep them for another month. The way the program worked is you could sign up for one or two months in November or December, and we donated money to charity. I did pay, if that helps, but and still shaved. So, but yeah, we had a number of our staff did make that donation, and then we're kind of having a runoff contest to see who can keep theirs till January as well. So.
Because I will say, Chief, though, I think if you would have gotten in on the contest, you could also be in the running to be a Santa Claus.
Well, yeah, you might be onto something there. That might be.
How important is it to have some of these events to not only connect with the community, but does it also help to raise morale within the department as well?
Sure. I think anytime you have any good, healthy competition is nice. And I think it's a great way for us to, as you said, engage with the community and give something back. I think, we do a number of things throughout the year to stay connected with our community. Right now, we're also doing a non-perishable food drive to help the neighborhood out. So our Christmas tree in the lobby is full underneath with all kinds of various canned goods and things that we'll take over to the neighborhood house and help those families that are in need, particularly this time of year.
If people want to drop off and donate, do they just come to the department? What do you want them to do?
Yep, they can come right to our lobby and drop them off under the tree. We'd be glad to have them.
And where does that go again?
It goes to the Rochester Neighborhood House. There's the food pantry there, which is at the Congregation Church, and it serves on a daily basis a number of residents throughout Rochester Hills, and Oakland Township, providing them with food staples throughout the week.
Chief, just another minute or two here with you on the Oakland County Megacast. Of course, we've had beautiful weather so far this winter season. We're just getting into the beginning of it, but people do tend to drive like idiots. Let's just go ahead and say it. Once the snow starts to hit, any tips or anything you want to get out to the public before we let you go?
Well, we always tell people, drive slow in ice and snow. It's a good saying. It's a good way to remember it. The other caution we have is just because I have an SUV, it may allow me to drive faster, but it doesn't do anything to make it stop faster. And so we got to make sure that people, drive within their means and watch the road conditions. And it's the stopping that always almost always gets us in trouble. So got to just make sure that we know the limitations of not only ourselves as drivers, but the limitations of our vehicles too.
What is it with us? It's like we just totally forget how to drive in snow. It's not like this isn't Michigan, right?
Well, and that's like particularly with the young drivers, we suggest that parents take them out to an open parking lot so they get an idea of what it feels like when analog brakes are applied, so that they aren't scared of that when it happens up on the road, and helps them better control their vehicles. So maybe we all need to have that little refresher course in the parking lot to remember how a car is going to stop in the snow, and to be careful. Not talking about donuts in the parking lot, but we're talking about just testing those brakes in a straight line, and so you get a feel for it. I think a lot of times that's what happens. It's kind of panic when they hear that noise, feel that vibration under their pedal, and bad things can happen.
Yeah, they don't understand there's a reason why their car is reacting
Correct.
that way. But I'm sure you never did donuts in the driveway.
Oh,
or
heavens no.
in the parking lot, right?
No, we're cops. We just eat them. We don't do them.
Well, Chief, it's been great having you with us here on the Oakland County Megacast. We wish you and your entire team over there a very happy and a very healthy December and holiday season as well.
Well, thank you. And to you as well, and to all your listeners, we certainly appreciate it.
Thank you for being with us. That's going to pretty much wrap it up for the Friday edition of the Oakland County Megacast. For myself and for Tyler, we want to say thank you for tuning in, and to Larry and Jake for all of their hard work behind the scenes to help us get the show on each and every day, and to book all of the guests for being here with us. We want to say thank you. This has been the Oakland County Megacast.
Keeping West Bloomfield connected during the coronavirus outbreak. This is 89.3 WBLD, Orchard Lake, West Bloomfield, Keego Harbor, Sylvan Lake, 89.3 Lakes FM. It's 12 noon. It's time for Lunch with Larry. Kicking off today with yesterday we had John Sinclair on the show, and now we're going to kick off Lunch with Larry with one of his good friends, John Lennon, and the Beatles, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely